In the last video, I showed you how I added a little diluted alcohol to my watercolor paintings to get some interesting effects. In this video, I want to show you how that works out when working outside, painting some plein air paintings of my local landscape. I'll show you what to expect if you want to try this approach in your own paintings. The small jar with the screw-on lid contains the diluted alcohol solution. The small size makes it easy to bring along on plein air painting trips. As I mentioned in my last video, I use acrylic brushes when I use this mixture, as I believe the alcohol can be a bit hard on natural hair brushes, so be aware of that if you're going to try this. I'll put a link below this video if you want to see the different ways this technique can be used. One of my great passions is to discover new ways to loosen up my painting style and to share my findings with other painters. So I hope you'll enjoy this unconventional approach to traditional watercolor painting. To indicate the yellow colors in the surrounding fields, I started with some concentrated applications of different yellow mixtures, and I was using a large brush. Tilt the paper and let the paint flow is another option. I'm looking for the kind of larger shapes at this stage and trying to look to the landscape to collect the colors and the shapes that I see. I'm not trying to get an actual likeness of all the landscape in front of me, but I am very attuned to try to get some of the different colors that I see and the shapes. I'm adding a bit of green to the mixture as well as some burnt sienna. And again, tilting the paper to let the colors flow and mingle on the surface of the paper. Here I'm adding some of that alcohol solution, and notice how the solution containing a bit of that alcohol, it really repels and pushes the paint pigment around on the page. It's quite unpredictable, but it's also quite interesting and fun. If you get too much solution on there, you can just wait for a while and let it dry and paint it over. But I like working wet into wet with this technique just because it really adds to this very loose and flowy method of or way of painting. Now I want to add a bit of that blue sky. I'm going to make it very simple and just add a little bit of blue paint here and there. Think about painting the blue around what would be the clouds. I'm just going to add different shades of blue and with some big brush strokes. So I'm not actually painting clouds as such. I'm painting the blue sky around the clouds. Also, having a paper towel is very handy to absorb excess paint. At this stage, I'll add in some very loose pencil lines to indicate some of the plants and the vegetation I see around me. In fact, if you are looking for ways to loosen up the way you paint, I want to give you my free guide, 5 proven ways to loosen up your painting style. In the guide, I share 5 great ways to loosen up your paintings, and you can start implementing those today. So if loosening up is something you want to do, click the link below this video to get your free copy of the guide. I'm continuously adding a few more pencil lines, but I'm very careful not to overdo it and just really indicate some of the shapes and forms that I see. These are rather small paintings as well, so there isn't room for a lot of detail. I almost always carry some Neocolor crayons with me when I'm out and about sketching and painting. So I decided to add a little bit of that in these small paintings. They pick up the texture of the paper quite nicely, and then I can always soften the texture with a little bit of water on a clean brush if I want to. The field in front of me has these reddish tones, kind of burnt sienna notes. So I'm going to use a Neocolor to add some burnt sienna. Remember, I'm using these small paintings to remind me of the colors I saw and the shapes and the texture. Nothing more is really needed. I'm gonna try and go in and make a little bit of definition to the horizon line in this painting and see how that looks. These paintings aren't planned out from beginning to end, as is often the case with some types of watercolor painting. This way is a lot more loose and spontaneous. So really don't be afraid to try things out and explore what happens if you just run with an idea. And here I'm discovering what happens when I add some of that diluted alcohol to my Neocolor mixture. I'm going to do 2 more quick landscape sketches here. First adding some yellow washes of color and also adding a bit of that alcohol. You can already see how it's starting to push the paint around. Adding in some darker yellow ochre as well as some burnt sienna. The effects are more visible, of course, when you have contrasting colors, either very light and dark colors close to each other. And I really like what's happening when I tilt the paper and let the paint mingle and run down across the surface of the paper. It really gives for some unpredictable textures and very loose application, definitely. Again, I'm going in with a bit of paper towel. It's always handy to both shape the paint and also to absorb any excess water or excess paint. So try that out. So the sun actually came out now a bit more strongly, and the clouds are clearing away. But it's still quite windy today. I'm gonna head back inside and get myself a warm cup of tea because I really feel my body is getting all cold and stiff. Although I'm wearing all these layers of wool and windbreaker, it's still not enough. We're at the end of August, but it's actually it's quite a bit colder than you would think. I'm going to take what I did inside and continue. I do think these are, of course, not masterpieces, but I do feel I collected some colors of the landscape and some interesting textures as well. So I have something that I can continue working on and to keep me inspired. I also took some photographs out here of the landscape to support me if I want to take these sketches further and just to remind me of what grabbed my attention when I was out there. Another thing I like to do is write notes on the back if there's anything particular that I'd like to remember. So now it's time for me to head back inside and get a cup of warm tea to warm up because it's a cold one today. So thank you for watching with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.